I've noticed something interesting coming up. It's not a new thing, but I think I'm developing more awareness of it now, a thousand some odd clients later. Took me a while.
It's a good
And
sample size.
here's a phenomenon. I'm gonna affectionately, lovingly label it Snowflake Syndrome. Okay. And it's this phenomenon that I find among particularly, relatively successful, intelligent people, is this idea that I'm so unique and I'm so special and my business is so unique and my business is so special, we're snowflakes, that I have a hard time finding people who can help me. I have a hard time getting help because unless you can demonstrate that you can help my perfect snowflake of a business or have, all the requisite domain knowledge that I believe is required to help my business, I don't believe you can help my business. And I've seen this enough times, I think it's worth discussing where this comes from, what drives this belief, and ultimately why I believe it's a disempowering belief.
It's also interesting because there's a bit of a dichotomy, if that's the word I want to use right here, but there's some push-pull, I think, between the reality that, in fact, everyone's business is very unique, right? It is its own special snowflake. All of the negative connotations currently attached to that word, we're setting those aside for the day. But, that is true, right? The folks that we're talking to, these, highly skilled, experienced, specialized individuals are in fact doing something that is special, right? That is different, that should be seen as, standing out from the crowd. But where the danger lies is when you can see that difference and you take it to such an extreme that you decide that you're, to your point, so special that, nobody can help you. And what I like about you saying it's disempowering, or what I agree with, what I believe, is it's like when you say something like that, you forget all of that special stuff that you have, right? Because the whole point is wherever you go to get support, whatever coach you talk to, whatever, system you want to put in place, whatever the case may be, it's never going to be specialized enough to, be the Ahmad solution, right? Like it's not going to be that specialized. And the thing to remember, and this is an interesting concept for consultants, is that you come to the table with the other piece of the puzzle. You come to the table with the knowledge of your business. You come to the table with the understanding of your clients. You come to the table knowing what all of that specialness is. And so it strikes me, just as I say it out loud, that it's sort of it's a line to walk, right? To get clarity on what does make you special, but not use it as sort of allow it to become a disempowering belief, or quite frankly, use it, right? Use it as the thing that lets you off the hook. I'm so special that no one can help me. And so therefore I'm going to kind of languish in this less than successful or, barely squeaking by environment.
Yeah, and I think it's a good conversation to have here for you, the listener, because I think you could look at this from both sides of the table. You can look at this as a buyer of whatever, consulting, training, professional services, advisory services. And you can look at this as the seller of such services, because I can pretty much guarantee you, if you've been selling for a minute, you've gotten this objection from a client. Are you specific enough? Do you have experience with this? And we're going to skip the conversation about positioning, because I do think that that's a big part of this conversation, and reference our other topics or episodes on that topic. But there's an argument, there's a legitimate argument that clients will have around your positioning, that they want something more specific, they want you to be focused, and there's a line beyond which it becomes unreasonable. You know, like, do you have experience in our market with our specific clients and our geography, working with founders like us who happen to like this kind of coffee? And I'm being facetious, but you hear that kind of thing sometimes where they're looking for something so specific that they're frankly not going to find it. And that's where you know they've crossed the line, is that there aren't folks out there who have that level of specificity, probably for good reason, because the market would be too small. So I think it's a good thing to consider as the consultant from both sides of the equation, as the buyer and as the seller. And I agree, you should, yeah, snowflake syndrome, like a tongue in cheek, right? Like, you should believe you are a special snowflake of a business. Like, absolutely. I believe our business is completely unique and one of a kind. And there's nothing on the face of the earth like it. And I believe that to be true. And I think you should believe that to be true about your business. I think the danger is where you start to believe that your problems are completely unique and that your problems are one of a kind and that nobody else could possibly be facing problems that you're facing. Because in my experience, having talked to a large number of you, you all have very unique businesses because you're unique individuals. Absolutely. But your problems are as generic as they come. Your problems are common. And that's that belief that my problems are generic, my problems are common, is an empowering belief. Because if my problems are generic and common, there must be some pretty common solutions. It's like if I go to the doctor, right, and I've got these symptoms and I express these symptoms to the doctor, and the doctor goes, oh, well, you've got COVID, for example, right? That's not good news, right? But, COVID is generic. COVID is common. We know what to do with COVID. Get some rest, isolate, where blah, blah, blah. We know what to do. It's a common problem. And that should offer a certain level of relief and empowerment because, okay, there's solutions out there. But if the doctor says, beats me, like, I don't know what you got, right? I've never seen this before. That's not, sure, you're special. You're special. That's not a very empowering place to be, though, because what do you do about it?
Well, and I think really what we're talking about is that you go to the doctor, right? The doctor gives you the diagnosis. And what you're saying is, no, that can't be true, right? Because I'm so special, it must be something different. It must be something unsolvable. It must be something that's really problematic that you've never heard of before. Like, that's the scenario we're talking about if we take your metaphor and just like push it a tiny little bit. And that's where you're going to get yourself in trouble, because you're putting yourself in a position where that doctor or no other doctor, who you might see, is going to be able to help you because you won't let them. And I wonder if there's something here that could be helpful, because I can imagine folks listening to us, some of them saying, yeah, that makes sense, and some of them rolling their eyes, right? But you don't know my situation. I'm definitely the special one. So I wonder if just, practically there's an opportunity to think about this or to frame this in a bit of an 80-20 rule kind of way, right? Even if you do have some problems that are truly, truly unique, right? Some things that only you are going to be able to face and only you are going to be able to solve. 80% of what you're dealing with, to your point, common, generic, resolvable. And the real trick as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as the person who's, in charge of ensuring that your business is a valuable, successful going concern, your job is to be the one that pulls in the resource to resolve all of those problems, right? And so it's also possible that whatever solution you find won't feel like 100% match. But your job, again, is what you can do is get out of it all of the things that are of value to you. And if that's only 90% of the solution, as it may be for some of your clients, right? You may only get them 80% of the way to utopia, but 80% is way, way better than the 0% they were at before they met you. And you can be in the same space, right? Like, what is it that I can take away from this idea, from, this person, from this advice that is going to push me, that is going to, propel me, that is going to get me closer. And quite frankly, maybe isn't going to solve my problem, that it's going to change my problem. Because if you can shift the stuff that you're dealing with, right, change the list of problems, adjust the balance, then you've got more solutions open to you. And this is going to be something that's an ongoing exercise, right, throughout the growth of your business. And really what we're looking for is evolution, not perfection.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had a client the other day make a comment on one of our office hour calls. He was referring to one of the trainings in the program, and the comment he made was that single idea in that training was worth the price of admission.
Mhm.
That, I don't remember what it was, but that one perspective that he got from that video paid for the program in his estimation, in terms of that's where he got, the value was sufficient from that one idea alone. And I got to say, that's good clients think like that.
Mhm.
By that I mean our clients. By that I mean your clients, the consultant, right? Like, surely, hopefully, you've had clients like this. Hopefully, I hope that for you. And if you haven't, they're out there, right? There are clients who understand that the value of consulting lies in the perspective shift. That results are ultimately a collaboration. Results are ultimately a partnership. Results are the product of the consultant and the client coming together and collaborating and mitigating the risks that could come in the way of results. But ultimately, the value in the transaction and what leads to those results is a perspective shift that is enabled inside you, the client, that then positions you to get the results that you want to get.
Yeah, and what's like further interesting about that is that the perspective shift may not be in the solution. Sometimes the perspective shift happens way back in the question, right? In the definition of the problem. Because the other thing we know is that being able to get clear on the problem is half the battle, more than half the battle. And so, there's also value, and I'm sure, again, those of you out there who are listening, find this when you're working with clients, is you'll start with them chasing something, right? Heading down a path. And then as you go through the work, find out that you need to make a left turn. You need to make an adjustment. The problem's a little bit different. There's more information. And that's really the ongoing exercise.
How often do we have a client come in who says, I really want to go after this market and I really want to sell this thing and I really want to sell it this way? And then they come in and they do the strategy work and the customer research part of that work. And then they make not a complete pivot, but they make a little adjustment to the right or to the left into a new market or a different offer. And it goes far better than they otherwise could have imagined, not by doing what they wanted to do, but by pursuing the path they discovered by going through the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think, moral of the story maybe is that none of this is finite. None of this is static. You are special, but you're special maybe not in the ways that you think, right? And figuring out what that means to not just how you're going to solve the problems in your business and move things forward in your business, but how you're going to use that out, when you're in the market, when you're working with your clients, having that evolving perspective ensures that you don't create this disempowering, and limiting belief for yourself.
Yeah. And I think, just to close on this note, I think let's look at this from both perspectives. Now, as the buyer, yes, you're special. When you get to the point where you can't find viable solutions to your problems because you think you're too special, that's probably where you're going to get into trouble. That's the line you don't want to cross. If you find solutions like, hey, we help B2B consultants with marketing and business development in a training and coaching done with you fashion. Okay. There are plenty of people who have been looking for that, but couldn't find it. And when they find us, they go, oh, where you been? Okay. So that's fine. That's when you find a solution that works and that checks your boxes, then you don't have a problem. Go and pursue that solution by all means. But if you find yourself in a position where you can't find viable solutions, that's a bigger problem. Not finding viable solutions is a bigger problem than finding imperfect solutions, because imperfect solutions can maybe get you some of the way there, offer some of the perspective shift, but no solution gets you nowhere closer. So when you find you're crossing that line into, well, I don't see anything out there that's relevant to me that could be helpful, that's a problem. And on the flip side, if your clients are saying that, they're saying, well, you're not specific enough, you don't offer this, you don't offer that, and you know that they're not going to find anything else out there that's appropriate, challenge them on it. We do this all the time. I tell prospects all the time, prospective clients, that in the B2B space, B2B consulting, unless you're looking to outsource to an agency, which has all kinds of challenges that come with that, there's not many other places to go except us. But if you find one, let me know. And more often than not, they have a hard time doing so because we know our positioning. And so if you own your positioning and you know where you stand in the market and you're confident in it, challenge the client to find something that's a better fit. Let them go and do their homework and do their research. If your positioning is dialed, 9 times out of 10, they're going to come back to you and realize that for themselves.